What if one small moment changed everything? Welcome to Sunlit Saga's Official, where ordinary moments hide powerful secrets and short stories leave a lasting mark. Here, every saga is crafted to pull you in, keep you watching, and stay with you long after it ends. If you love stories with meaning, emotion, and unexpected turns, subscribe now, because the next story might be the one you'll never forget. But before the story begins, ask yourself this: how many moments in your life felt ordinary until they weren't? He woke up one morning and didn't recognize his own reflection. Not because he'd aged, not because he'd changed physically, but because the man staring back at him in the mirror looked empty, like someone had reached inside his chest and turned off a switch he didn't even know existed. His name was Michael. 47 years old, married for 22 years, 2 kids, a career most people would envy, and yet standing there in his bathroom on a Tuesday morning in September, he felt absolutely nothing. No excitement, no dread, no anger, just a hollow, echoing silence where his passion used to live. He couldn't remember the last time he felt truly alive, and the scariest part, he couldn't remember when it started to fade. This is the story of a man who lost something more valuable than money, more precious than time. He lost the fire inside him, and what he discovered trying to get it back will change the way you see your own life forever. What happens when the things that used to excite you no longer move you? When the dreams you once chased feel like distant memories from someone else's life? Michael had everything on paper: the house in the suburbs, the stable job as a senior accountant at a firm downtown, the family dinners on Sundays. But somewhere between the promotions and the mortgage payments, between the school runs and the overtime, something inside him had quietly died, and he never even noticed. Was it gradual? Was there a specific moment when the light went out? Or had he been slowly suffocating under the weight of routine for so long that he'd forgotten what breathing freely even felt like? These are the questions that haunted him, and the answers he found didn't come from a therapist's office or a self-help book. They came from a place he never expected, a place that forced him to confront a truth most of us spend our entire lives running from. Michael wasn't always like this. 25 years ago, he was a kid from Pittsburgh with a guitar, a notebook full of songs, and a dream that felt as real as the air in his lungs. He wanted to be a musician, not famous necessarily, just heard. He wanted to create something that mattered, something that made people feel. His parents, good people with practical minds, sat him down the summer before college and painted a different picture. Music was a hobby, they said, a gamble. The real world required stability, security, a plan. So Michael chose accounting. It made sense at the time. Numbers didn't lie. Numbers didn't break your heart. He told himself he'd keep playing on the side, maybe join a band on weekends, write songs in his spare time. But college became a career, the career became a marriage, the marriage became kids, and the guitar gathered dust in the basement, untouched for 15 years. He loved his wife, Karen. She was kind, steady, the kind of woman who remembered birthdays and kept the household running like a well-oiled machine. But somewhere along the way, they'd stopped talking about dreams. They talked about bills, about the kids' grades, about whose turn it was to pick up groceries. The conversations were functional, efficient, and completely devoid of soul. His daughter, Emma, was 16, sharp as a knife, already talking about law school. His son, David, was 13, obsessed with video games and basketball. Good kids, he was proud of them, but when he looked at them, he sometimes felt like a stranger, like he was watching someone else's life through a foggy window. At work, Michael was respected, reliable, the guy who never missed a deadline, never made a scene, never rocked the boat. His boss once called him the backbone of the team, and Michael smiled and said thank you, even though the compliment felt like a prison sentence, because being the backbone meant you held everything up, and no one ever asked if the backbone was tired.
if it wanted to collapse, if it dreamed of being something else entirely. He went through the motions. Wake up at 6, coffee, shower, drive, spreadsheets, meetings, lunch at his desk, more spreadsheets, drive home, dinner, TV, bed, repeat. It was a life, but it wasn't living. And on that Tuesday morning in September, staring at his own empty eyes in the mirror, Michael finally admitted the truth he'd been avoiding for years. He was dying inside, slowly, quietly, and no one around him had any idea. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. The breaking point came on a Thursday. Michael was sitting in a conference room, listening to his boss discuss quarterly projections when something inside him snapped. Not in a dramatic way. There was no outburst, no breakdown, just a sudden, overwhelming realization that if he spent one more second in that room pretending to care about numbers that meant nothing to him, he might disappear completely. He excused himself, walked to his car, and drove. He didn't know where he was going. He just drove. Through the city, past the suburbs, onto back roads he didn't recognize. The radio was off. The silence was deafening. And for the first time in years, Michael let himself think, really think. When had he stopped being himself? When had he become this hollow shell of a man who went through the motions but never felt anything real? He pulled over at a rest stop, hands shaking, and sat there in the parking lot for an hour, just breathing, just existing. A truck driver walked past and gave him a strange look, but Michael didn't care. He felt like he was waking up from a coma. That night, he didn't go home right away. He stopped at a music store, one of those old shops that still sold vinyl records and vintage instruments. He didn't plan to go in, but something pulled him through the door. The smell hit him first. Wood, strings, dust, nostalgia. He wandered through the aisles, fingers trailing over guitar cases, and then he saw it. A Gibson acoustic, honey-colored, hanging on the wall like a relic from another life. He asked the clerk if he could hold it. The moment his hands touched the strings, something cracked open inside him. He played a chord, then another, rusty, clumsy, but real. The clerk, a kid in his 20s with kind eyes, smiled and said, "You play?" Michael looked up, and for the first time in years, he felt something stir in his chest. "I used to," he said, and in that moment he realized how much he missed it, how much he missed himself. He bought the guitar, didn't think about the price, didn't think about how he'd explain it to Karen. He just bought it. When he got home, she was in the kitchen chopping vegetables for dinner. She glanced at the guitar case and raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" Michael set it down gently. "Something I should have done a long time ago." She didn't understand yet, but she didn't argue. That night, after everyone went to bed, Michael sat in the basement and played. His fingers ached, the notes were shaky, but for the first time in 20 years, he felt alive. The next few weeks were a war inside Michael's mind. Part of him wanted to dive headfirst into music again, to reclaim the part of himself he'd buried. But another part, the louder part, told him he was being ridiculous. He was 47 years old. He had responsibilities, bills, a family. You don't just throw away 20 years of stability for a dream you gave up on half a lifetime ago. But every night, he found himself in that basement, playing, writing, remembering who he used to be. Karen noticed. She'd come down sometimes, stand at the bottom of the stairs and watch him. She didn't say much, but Michael could see the confusion in her eyes, and maybe a little bit of fear. One night, she finally asked, "Are you having a midlife crisis?" Michael stopped playing, looked at her, and said, "Maybe, or maybe I'm finally waking up." She didn't know how to respond to that. At work, Michael started slipping, missing deadlines, zoning out in meetings. His boss pulled him aside and asked if everything was okay. Michael said yes, but they both knew it was a lie. The truth was, he didn't care anymore. The spreadsheets, the projections, the performance reviews, none of it mattered. He was good at his job, but it was killing him, slowly, silently, and he couldn't do it anymore. Emma noticed too. She came home one day from school and found him in the basement, guitar in hand, notebook open. She stood there watching him with that sharp, analytical gaze she'd inherited from her mother. "You're different," she said. Michael looked up. "Is that a bad thing?" She thought about it, then shrugged. "I don't know yet." David, on the other hand, thought it was cool. He'd sneak down to the basement and listen, sitting on the old couch in the corner, headphones around his neck. One night he asked, "Dad, were you in a band or something?" Michael smiled. "Almost, a long time ago." David nodded, processing. "You should have done it." Those words
Hit Michael harder than anything because his 13-year-old son was right. He should have done it. And the only thing stopping him now was fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of proving his parents right, that music was just a pipe dream and he'd wasted his one shot at a real life. But the fire was back, flickering, fragile, and Michael realized he had a choice. He could let it die again, or he could feed it, even if it burned everything else down. If this story is hitting home, if you've ever felt like Michael, like you've lost a part of yourself along the way, type "I'm still watching" in the comments. Let's see who's really paying attention. And stick around, because what happens next is gonna shake you. 3 months after buying that guitar, Michael made a decision that would change everything. He quit his job, not impulsively, not recklessly. He sat down with Karen, showed her the numbers, the savings, the plan. He told her he couldn't keep living a life that made him feel dead inside. He expected her to fight him, to call him selfish, to remind him of all the reasons he couldn't just walk away from 20 years of financial security. But she didn't. She cried, and then she said something that broke him. "I've been watching you disappear for years, Michael. I just didn't know how to tell you." That night, they talked for hours. Really talked, for the first time in what felt like forever. She admitted she'd felt it too. The numbness, the routine, the slow erosion of the people they used to be. She'd buried herself in the kids, in the house, in anything that kept her from facing the same terrifying question Michael had been asking himself. Is this all there is? Michael didn't have another job lined up. He didn't have a grand plan, but he started playing open mic nights at a small bar downtown. Mostly covers, a few originals. The crowds were small, sometimes just the bartender and a couple of regulars. But it didn't matter, because for the first time in decades, he was doing something that made him feel like himself. One night, an older man approached him after a set. Late 60s, weathered face, kind eyes. He introduced himself as Tom, said he used to manage bands back in the day. He told Michael he had something real, something raw. "You're not going to be a rock star," Tom said, smiling, "but you've got stories, and people need stories." Tom offered to help him record a few songs, nothing professional, just honest. And Michael said yes. The twist came 6 months later. Michael's daughter Emma was applying for colleges, writing her personal essay. She asked if she could interview him for it, about his music, about why he started playing again. During the interview, she asked him a question that stopped him cold. "Dad, do you regret the choices you made? Like going into accounting instead of music?" Michael thought about it, really thought about it. And then he said, "No, because those choices gave you and your brother and your mom and a life I'm grateful for. But I do regret forgetting who I was. I regret letting the fire go out." Emma wrote her essay about him, about resilience, about second chances, about a father who taught her that it's never too late to reclaim yourself. She got into her top choice school, and in her acceptance letter, the admissions officer mentioned the essay specifically, said it was one of the most moving pieces they'd read that year. Michael realized then that his story wasn't about failure or wasted time. It was about transformation, about waking up,
and about showing his kids that life isn't just about survival, it's about meaning. It's about the fire inside you that refuses to die, no matter how long you've ignored it. Today, Michael plays 3 nights a week at that same bar. He's not famous, he's not rich, but he's alive, truly alive. He and Karen are closer than they've been in years. They talk about dreams again, about possibilities, about what comes next. Emma calls him from college sometimes, just to tell him he's proud of him. David learned to play guitar too. They jam together on weekends. And Michael, the man who once stared at his reflection and saw nothing, now sees someone he recognizes, someone he's proud to be. The fire inside him didn't fade because he was weak. It faded because he stopped feeding it, because he let the world convince him that passion was irresponsible, that dreams were for the young, that stability was more important than soul. But here's the truth most of us never learn until it's almost too late. The fire inside you, that thing that makes you feel alive, it's not optional. It's not a luxury. It's oxygen. And without it, you're not living. You're just existing. Michael's story isn't unique. It's happening right now to someone you know. Maybe it's happening to you. You wake up, you go through the motions, you check the boxes, and somewhere along the way, you forget what it feels like to burn. But the fire is still there, buried, waiting. And all it takes is one moment of courage, one decision to stop running, one choice to pick up the thing you abandoned and say, not anymore, not today. Because the saddest thing in the world isn't failure. It's never trying. It's dying with your music still inside you. Michael almost did that, but he didn't. And neither do you have to. So here's my question for you. What's the fire inside you that's fading? What's the dream you buried? What's the part of yourself you've been ignoring because life got in the way? Drop a comment and tell me, because I want to know, and I think you need to say it out loud. And if Michael's story hit you the way it hit me, if it reminded you that it's not too late, that you still have time, do me a favor. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's going through the motions, someone who's forgotten what it feels like to be alive. And stick around, because what happens next is gonna shake you. Don't miss it. I'll see you there.